I understand it's such a difficult time for you with the horrific, for the whole world, with the horrific Hamas attacks on Israel. And I understand your youngest son, Aaron, and your ex-husband, Yosef, were in Israel at the time of the attacks. How are they doing?
Well, my ex-husband, Yosef, went for the holiday of Sukkot. My son is there for the year. He's there in yeshiva, studying, living in a dorm right now, refusing to leave because he wants to show solidarity to the Jewish people. And of course, I admire that, and I think he's super brave, but he's my baby, and I want him to come home. But it's really difficult to even find words for what's happening. Here's the things that really give me tremendous anguish and things that I just genuinely cannot comprehend. I have walked through remote villages in Rwanda handing out menstrual cups. I have gone to the front lines in Ukraine, driven an ambulance, almost got blown up twice to help the freedom fighters in Ukraine. I have marched and I spoke at a rally in Washington. I led a rally for Iranian women who were being poisoned, brutalized, beaten, and imprisoned for asking to be educated and to have a right to freedoms such as being able to travel by themselves, not having to be covered head to toe. I believe in the global sisterhood. I have spent every possible strength that I have to create this army of women who are united and working to change the world for a better place. Let's look at this for a second. The history of anti-Semitism. The first excuse for hating Jewish people was they were supposed to be Christ killers, okay? Thousands of years that this was the accusation. Of course, it was the Romans who did it, unequivocally proven. They were the only people who put people on those crosses, right? They don't look like a cross at the time. Mm-hmm. Do you know when the Christian world apologized to the Jewish people for millennia of murder? 1987. 1987. That's when the Pope stood up and said, you know what? The Jews didn't kill Jesus. Oops. Sorry that we've been killing you for a couple thousands of years and we've killed hundreds of millions of you, but whoops, we made a mistake. Jews didn't kill Jesus. Okay, so now you would think, great. The world is going to wake up and say, oh my God, we've been blaming Jews for something they never did. We owe them a big apology. Oops, guys, sorry that we've been mutilating you, killing you, throwing you out of countries. You actually didn't do anything. But that's not what happens. What happens next? Religious anti-Semitism transforms into economic anti-Semitism. So, historically, Jews were not allowed to own land. They weren't allowed to farm. They weren't allowed to own property. And so what ended up happening, how do they support themselves? They went into banking. They went into business because they had no other choice. They couldn't do agriculture like the rest of the world. The world wouldn't let them. And so now the new version of anti-Semitism came out. The rich, mean, disgusting Jew who lends money at crazy interests and was a money lender. And then you look at Shakespeare, who writes about Fagin, right? Who's like this evil man who uses little children to steal. And guess what? You know how many Jews Shakespeare met?
How many?
0. Because when Shakespeare was alive, there were no Jews in England because Cromwell, who was the king at the time, kicked all the Jews out of England. Shakespeare never in his life met a Jew, ever. And yet, it was so ingrained in the weft of society to hate Jews that he literally writes about these devilish evil demons, although he's never met one. So that became economic anti-Semitism. Then World War II happens, and what does Hitler use? That's what he uses. The Jews are the reason the country's in disarray, and that's why there's depression, and they're so wealthy and we're so poor, dump it on the Jews. What ends up happening? World War II, the Holocaust. I have always had such a difficult time trying to understand how normal people who walked their dogs, fed their children, tucked them in, went to work, went to school, could watch babies being literally bashed against walls, watch children killed in the street, saw murder and mutilation, smelled burned bodies next door to them as the ovens just kept being fed more human sacrifices. How did they say nothing? how could normal human beings stand silent and allow this to happen? And I never understood it. How could they dehumanize people to such a degree that normal average people could walk by a street and see children literally being thrown against walls and say nothing? And it's not until today that I understand how. And that is that hate always has an excuse. There's always a justification. Hitler didn't go and say, hey guys, I hate Jews. I just want to kill as many Jews as I humanly can. It's been ingrained in me to hate Jews. My family hated Jews. Their families hated Jews. It's been around for thousands of centuries. And guess what? I'm going to use them to build myself a power base and give everybody an enemy that we can all hate together. Let's go. No. He says Jews annihilated and they stole and they destroyed the world. There's always a justification. And so your normal average daily Joe shrugs their shoulders and says, oh, I guess they're really bad. I guess it's okay that he's slamming babies against wall and burning people in ovens. They must have done something. And that's what's happening today.
You've always advocated against anti-Semitism, and what's happening today, right now, in Israel. What would your message be to the public, and how are we going to stop these barbaric acts from continuing that are outrageous?
Great question. So to me, this is now the third version of anti-Semitism. When Hitler almost succeeded in decimating the Jewish population, economic anti-Semitism dropped, and what took its place is political anti-Semitism. Now it was okay to hate Jews because you could hate Israel. And so all Jews somehow are Israelis, right? In Stanford University, they made students stand against the wall and cursed them and humiliated them for what exactly? What did these children do? In Australia, they're literally shouting, bring back the gas chambers. Everywhere I look, my daughter got an image of a baby carriage with an oven in it and said, this is where Jewish babies should go, on her social media. I have received death threats. I have been told that I'm going to be torn limb from limb and my skin is going to be used to make clothing for Muslim children. Looking at the people who are staying silent. Okay, to me, there's three groups of people. They're the people who are speaking out, whether it's dangerous or not, whether it's to their benefit or not, whether it will damage their career or not, they're standing up and doing what's right. Then there's a second group of people. That group of people is just like, oh, I don't want to get involved. I'm going to get in trouble. Someone's going to cancel me. Mm-hmm. Friends of mine won't like me anymore. I don't want to stand up for Israel. People are not going to like me. And the third group of people are the people who are supporting, celebrating murder, brutality, killing of children, beheading of babies, the rape of innocent young women. And what I say is, today, the IDF announced that they're going to attack Gaza, and they opened the borders and said, leave, go, protect yourselves. Jews don't murder people. There was a Hamas leader being interviewed in Russia. He literally said, Jews love life. We love death. Guess what Hamas is doing? Hamas is telling people to stay. They want them to die. They want them to be martyrs. He literally said it. We love martyrs. Jews believe in life. We celebrate death. They don't care about the Palestinian people. To them, the Palestinian people are fodder for their mission to destroy Israel. And the more of them who stay in Gaza and therefore get killed, the better it is for Hamas. Israel, the IDF says, innocent people, leave. We don't want to bother you. We don't want to touch you. Get out of harm's way. And it is Hamas that's saying, stay. People living under Hamas rule, women, children, LGBTQIA, they are suffering tremendously. And now Hamas is literally telling its people, stay and be murdered so that we can use it as a weapon against Israel and the Jewish people. Hamas uses children as literal human shields. They surround themselves with children so that when anyone attacks them, the children get killed, and then they can show these images of these poor dead children. My message is that do not be fooled. It is not Israelis. It is not the IDF killing innocent Palestinians. It is Hamas telling Palestinians, stay and die so that we can destroy Israel. And that, to me, is factual, unequivocal. They openly admit it themselves. Don't believe me. They're the ones saying it to their own people. Stay and be slaughtered. So my message is, if today you are keeping silent, your children and your grandchildren will one day be ashamed of you. I promise you that. And if today you celebrate brutality, murder, cruelty, your name will not be forgotten. And one day in the history books, the people who supported murder, brutality, evil, and cruelty, they will not hide in the shadows anymore. We will bring them out to the light.
What do you have to say to a lot of these celebrities who are just staying silent?
Just shame on you.
They have millions and
Millions of followers, and they're more afraid of offending someone than standing up and doing what's right. Right? You know what happened today, which I was so proud to see? The Catholic Church marched in New York City in solidarity with the Jews and with Israel, which was so beautiful. And you know what it made me think of? We have moved forward as a people, because in Nazi Germany, the church stood silent. And now the church is defending the Jewish people, the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims. Do you know how many? I mean, I consider them my Muslim sisters. I have marched with them. I have fought for them. You know, when I left my community, you know who befriended me? Muslim women befriended me because we understood each other. We had such similar experiences. To me, there is this global sisterhood, and I promise you, you know, in Israel today, there are Palestinian women and Israeli women marched together. It isn't about Islam and Judaism. It isn't about Palestine and Israel. It's about anti-Semitism and hate. Pure and simple. Hamas is as bad for Muslims as it is for Jews. I saw this interview with this Muslim cleric who said, what these Hamas people are doing, it's against the Quran. It's against the laws of Islam itself. This has nothing to do with religion. This is using religion as an excuse to exterminate and annihilate. And I have to say, I've never been prouder to be a Jew.